So not a lot of people know that we're here. Lifestyle influencing in tandem with the education influencing is the only reason that the education part exists. We call it hiding the broccoli. Last year when I would do interviews and I would do speaking events, I would say we reach about 30 million people a year. And now we're saying we reach over 100 million people a year.
How do you kind of evaluate the qualitative impact?
I'm glad you asked that because Twitch is traditionally a gaming platform. We had to euthanize one of the older roaches. Everyone was so sad. It went from like disgusting, burn it, to rest in peace, Barbara.
It's been 4.5 years. How does something like this go from like idea in your head to like this?
You just said 4.5 years and I was like, there's no way that's it. I don't know, it feels like I've been doing this my whole life.
I'm currently speaking with Maya Higa, a 27-year-old Twitch streamer, animal educator, and conservationist. And over the last 3 months, I talked to a dozen people, including scientists, creators, Maya's coworkers, and even some of her fans. Here's why. So we're currently in this moment where research funding is getting gutted across the board. Not only that, attacks on science are becoming more normalized than ever before. Yet Maya is redefining science communication, and her methods are actually working.
We call it hiding the broccoli here at Alveus, right?
Her core audience is full of 19 to 30-year-olds who typically log onto YouTube and Twitch to watch gaming streams and entertainment. This isn't exactly the demographic you think would care about learning insect facts or signing environmental petitions. But these viewers are watching, and they're watching a lot. In September, we had a chance to tour Maya's animal sanctuary, and that video is actually out right now on our channel. But at the end of the visit, we actually sat down with Maya at Alveus' offices, aka headquarters. We went deeper on why she thinks Alveus works, reaching a point where she can actually take time off, and what she ultimately wants to accomplish with her platform. It was honestly a really fascinating conversation, too fascinating not to share with you all. We hope you enjoy it, and stick around until the end for more on Maya's story. Cool. Well, thanks for having us and everything. I know we just walked around Alveus for the last couple hours or so, but it's been about a month since we hopped on Zoom, talked through things, just your background and whatnot. Curious, like in the months since, like what's on your mind? Like what's been happening?
So much has been happening. So on Friday, we brought in our newest rescue. So we have Noli, who's an emu out there. And so she's at the forefront of our brains right now, is getting her adjusted here. And then also the announcement for the Breeding and Recovery Center. So we are now working on developing a panel for TwitchCon, and we're gonna announce what species we're starting with at TwitchCon this year, which is literally like tomorrow, basically. So that's on my mind as well, but it's always moving. We're very busy here, we move very fast.
Now that we've kind of walked around the whole sanctuary, you know, the different enclosures, what do you think about Alveus? Like if there's a specific spot or thing that really makes it unique or stand out among sanctuaries, zoos, what have you, is there a specific thing you think?
The live cams for sure. Yeah, so with our live cams and with the fact that we're only virtual and nobody can visit in person, I think we're able to reach way more people in way more places with the animals having to meet way less people. And so we found that that's really awesome for the animals' welfare. Reduces stress a lot. There's not people running around and there's not people screaming and throwing food into enclosures and stuff like that. Not to say that traditional zoo models don't work, but our animals definitely get to live a life of peace here, and they only see their animal care staff that they love so much and occasional collaborators. So we're very different in that way. And because we're live all the time, people are watching these animals all the time and become really, really attached to them and get to know them very well. Whereas I think when you visit another facility in person, it's very cool to see that animal in person, but you see them for way less time. And I think that time matters too in building connection. So our live camps, just us being virtual. Short answer.
No, I even remember like, interviewing Rhett and Link at Mythical Studios, for example, and something that they really contributed to their success and the connection with fans is that the way they built their setup, the camera's really close to them. So you feel like you're in the room with them and everything. And it sounds like the live cams element, it's like very intentional.
Yes.
You know, very well thought out in that regard. We were talking a little bit before, but I asked why Austin, and you mentioned you end up here because a lot of streamers, whatnot, came out here for work and have stayed for plenty of reasons. But curious to hear like what people's reactions are when they learn that there's this really big, Twitch channel, YouTube channel and everything.
I don't get that reaction very often. I think a lot of people don't know that we're here, which is kind of the goal, is part of being online is keeping our location as private as possible for the safety of us and also for our animals, so people aren't coming out here trying to visit them. So not a lot of people know that we're here. Our neighbors know that we're doing, know what we're doing, obviously, which is nice, and they're super supportive. And then streamers come out for other collabs in Austin, and then they make us a pit stop, which is really nice. But other than that, I don't think that the general community knows about us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In terms of like another thing I know we've talked about throughout the day, but walk me through more the quantitative side of like, when you talk about how big Alveus has gotten, what do you kind of point to first?
So I'm glad you asked that, because maybe even last time we talked, I don't know, last year when I would do interviews and I would do speaking events, I would say we reach about 30 million people a year. But we recently just reevaluated that number, and now we're saying we reach over 100 million people a year, which is so exciting across all platforms. That's on Twitch and on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. I mentioned in the pasture, we recently just had our cow go viral for mooing at the live cam to get fed. And so we're just reaching unfathomable amounts of people. That clip has like 30 million views or something on Instagram right now. So we look at reach a lot, is how many people are we accessing and inspiring. And then we have a really cool forum on our website called Show and Tell. So viewers will submit things, nature-related things that they're doing. They'll submit that they started studying for a biology degree, or that they went and did a trash cleanup, or they volunteered in an animal shelter. And so we are actually tracking hours, like community service hours from our community. I could get that number for you, but it's really incredible, the amount of hours that they've put in. So we're tracking that quantitatively. And then our rescued animals, I think every animal that we bring in is a huge win for us, knowing that we can give them the best life possible and the best welfare possible. We have an incredible amount of resources because of our online community to take care of those animals, and we're just stoked to give them the best rest of their lives possible.
It's interesting even that you're measuring community service hours, and like there is a way to track that, but you kind of spoke to the quantitative impact, how you're measuring reach. How do you kind of evaluate the qualitative impact of what Alveus is doing?
Yeah, so I think a cool thing about Alveus is our demographic is on Twitch, mostly Twitch and YouTube, and Twitch is traditionally a gaming platform. So we have all of these young men in our audience that are gamers, that are not the typical demographic for biology or conservation education. So there are a lot of gamers turned environmentalists, or gamers turned nature lovers. And so we watched that happen in real time. We had, when we brought in our cockroaches, for example, and we were doing invertebrate conservation, we brought in these bugs, and the initial reaction was like, ew, kill it with fire, step on it, disgusting. And then over time, we like gave the bugs a name, and they watched me feed the bugs sweet potatoes and stuff like that. And then we had to euthanize one of the older roaches because she was really old. And when we had to do that, and we did that on stream, everyone was so sad. It went from like the chat wave of like, disgusting, burn it, to rest in peace, Barbara, like beautiful, I love you, cockroach, this is so sad, like they're crying. So we get to watch that happen live, which is so cool, and obviously something I'm like super passionate about. So that's the qualitative.
Yeah. Off of that too, again, something I think we've talked about, but it's been 4.5 years, right, since you really started, and things have just picked up. We're sitting right here in office, or you call it headquarters? Headquarters, yeah. Right. How does something like this, when you reflect on it, go from like idea in your head to like this?
You just said 4.5 years, and I was like, there's no way that's it. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like I've been doing this my whole life. And in some ways I have. I think I grew up on a farm, and so animals have always been a part of my life. I was a zookeeper in college, and so conservation very quickly became my life at that point too. But really, I'm just crazy lucky, I think, to be in the position that I'm in. I think there's a lot of people that love animals and would love to do animal sanctuary work, and it's just a problem of support and resources. And because I have the platforms that I do, it has exploded. And that's why we move so fast, is we want to do right by the people that are supporting us and donating and watching us, and we want to rescue more animals, and we want to do more conservation work because they give us so much. So it's just because of the viewers, and then because of our team, which we only have because we have these viewers, but we have this incredible team now too that have crazy skill sets and are so passionate and so driven and so talented. And so yeah, it's all just grown crazy fast thanks to everybody else.
Yeah.
And myself, but thanks to everybody else.
I remember we talked about on Zoom as well, both this element of when you started it, you were 23 or so, right?
21.
And 21.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just all of a sudden being thrown into figuring out how nonprofits work and managing people and, you know, all this.
Yeah.
And we also talked about too, it's, you know, this element of wearing a lot of different hats, like every creator does, but you're also doing the creator thing while having a whole Alveus Sanctuary. Mm-hmm. And you said, like, to sum it all up, the way you would say your title would be wildlife presenter. Mm-hmm. When you think about setting the culture here, it sounds like everyone's very bought in the mission. You know, there's that shared passion for it and whatnot. But I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
In that reflection of, like, how do you reflect on maybe how you've grown as a leader or as a, you know, growing the culture here? What do you kind of think back to 4.5 years ago versus now?
I think that's been the hardest part, is jumping into that and hiring people that are older than me and that have more experience than me, and trying to lead everybody. Ultimately, what makes the Alveus team so great is we're all so aligned on what we want for these animals and what we want for our natural world too. So Alveus is a two-pillared organization. There's animal sanctuary, animal welfare, and there's conservation education. And because I'm the executive director, I make a lot of the decisions about how those things are weighed out. And at the end of the day, we are animal welfare above everything. And so one of the nice things is we don't have to deal with the battle of where does the money go? Does it go into human experience if we're open to the public? Does it go into like new bathrooms or a roller coaster or a carousel or stuff like that? It's always going to go into things like expanding the enclosures we already have, like the parrot enclosure, or bringing in things that'll make our animals' lives better. And for my animal care staff, that means everything to them, right? Is if an animal needs something, we have the resources to provide it, and we absolutely will, because that's what I care about and that's what they care about. So it's just been really easy. I mean, I won't say that, you know, staff management is easy or culture building is easy, but the team that I have and the way that we're philosophically aligned has made it really easy.
I know too, again, to that point about like wearing a lot of different hats. Mm-hmm. You, of course, recently left your podcast mm-hmm. with QT after doing that for a while. Mm-hmm. I'm sure too, a little bit less travel, you know, and decision like that. But, you know, talk to me about leaving other pursuits like that and, you know, really, I feel like in your words, you've kind of gotten across this point of like doubling down on Alveus.
Yeah.
What's that process kind of been like, almost like giving up some of those hats and doubling down on others?
Yeah, it's a weird model, because you'd think that the more hats I give up, the bigger Alveus can grow, because I can be here and then make it bigger and spend my time here. But it's actually the opposite because of the way that this model works. So the bigger that I am as a creator, I've kind of always thought of my brand as a funnel into the sanctuary. And so the bigger that I am, the more brand recognition I have of going to other streamers and they know that I'm the animal person and I have the animal sanctuary, the bigger this nonprofit is. So I actually have done a lot more traveling for collaborations that are like just chatting collaborations and making YouTube videos and stuff, to funnel more into it. So I've done a lot of travel for streaming, a lot of travel for videos, and I'm constantly trying to grow my own brand so that Alveus grows as a brand. My dream is, it's now at that point, I think, but my dream a couple of years ago was that Alveus has its own 2 feet, to where if I had a mental breakdown and had to leave for a month, or something happened and I had to go away, everybody is still getting paid and the animals are still getting taken care of and people are still watching and learning. So I'm constantly just funneling and trying to like build that up.
It sounds like that was a big milestone, you know, you're working
Yes.
towards. It's like reaching that. It's
Yes.
like, okay,
Yes.
what comes next is
For
the
sure.
build out and,
Yeah.
you know.
But it wasn't like that at the beginning. At the
Right.
beginning, for sure, it was like, I was like scramble funneling. Now it's like, you know,
We can think bigger.
we're solid,
and
we can just
longer.
grow. Yeah.
I know Kayla too, to your point, like spoke about, you know, when the floods happened, I think she said she was in Boston and it's just like booking that flight back. So it's like, okay, like now it's at a point where there are people there, even if they're traveling, but it is still a bit of that small, scrappy team, right? All hands on deck, we got to fly back,
Yes.
you know, and all that.
Yeah.
I think you spoke to over Zoom, some scientists and researchers you collaborate with, reach out to, they reach out to you, like they really get it. They got the Twitch thing.
Yeah.
There's mutual respect. Others, maybe not so much, they just don't get it or don't want to get it, whatever it may be. After you left the podcast, I think QT spoke to this element of like, as Maya's focusing on Alveus and it's growing and, in the world of conservation, just like being able to feel like, you can still be yourself and still be the character that people, really grew to know and appreciate, but also like a bit of this balance of like being taken seriously by this like more traditional world. Let's just hear you kind of expand on that, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like how you kind of handle that balance.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people see me as a person more than like a formal wildlife presenter. This is where I said you'll hear me repeat things. When I talk about wildlife education, I talk about the difference between reading something in a textbook in school or reading something educational on a billboard versus sitting on a couch listening to your friend talk about something that they care about. One is much more powerful, one is much more anecdotal and much more trustworthy and something that you can get invested in, and one is very traditional and more just learning. And so I obviously ascribe to the second model. I think that people knowing me or feeling like they know me as a person and seeing more sides of me makes me more relatable. I think it makes me more trustworthy, and it makes them excited to listen to me talk because they're fans at the end of the day, and they want to hear what I'm interested in and what I'm doing. And so lifestyle influencing in tandem with the education influencing is the only reason that the education part exists. We call it hiding the broccoli here at Alveus, right? Is like, we have to be really fun and then we can teach them along the way. But if I were to just go live and only do wildlife presenting and not any of the lifestyle content, we lose everybody. They want to be a part of the whole picture.
Off of that too, you've been speaking to it throughout today, but the next year, talked about again over Zoom as well, but like, okay, so one quick note. You may have noticed me reference this background interview I recorded with Maya several times throughout this conversation. This is something I do for all of our cover stories because not only do I get to know creators like Maya, it allows me to get the background questions out of the way so then when I'm interviewing her in person, we can really hit the ground running. Usually I don't share these video interviews, but this one was pretty dang interesting. So we posted it as a bonus video to our premium members, which is powered by Fourth Wall. Fourth Wall is the all-in-one home base for creators to build private membership communities, as well as e-commerce shops, all in the same place. Here's how we use it. First, readers can subscribe to our annual membership, receiving all 4 of our print editions of the magazine at a discounted price. As members, they have access to a private community where we share bonus content, like the Maya Higa background interview. Finally, members get exclusive shop discounts, and they're the first to be notified when we have an upcoming event. Building our brand on Fourth Wall has been really instrumental to our business as we get to communicate directly with our biggest supporters, as well as reward them for their support. The best part, it's free to start. Launch your membership community and e-commerce shop on Fourth Wall today and get $25 in product sample credits when you use our link in the comments. All right, back to our conversation with Maya. We're here and everything, we've seen the build out and whatnot, but what does kind of the next year look like?
I think a lot of the next year is focusing on the Breeding and Recovery Center. So developing that site, building it out into what we want it to be, announcing the species that we're starting with, and just really building up and fundraising for that program. It's going to be huge 2026. We're building bird of prey enclosures right now, 2026. So bringing in birds of prey for education and for rescue, obviously. So those are the 2 big ones that I have in my head right now. But this is also Alveus Sanctuary. Things happen all the time very quickly and in very big ways. So we will see.
Yeah, I know, mentioned, but talked with Solomon David, right?
Yes.
He brought up a key thing he saw was you and, the crew coming through and his students and, folks who work in his lab. There's just like a lot of mutual respect.
When my and her crew came up here, I was able to go with my students into the field. They were able to interact with like YouTubers and Twitch streamers. A lot of my students knew who she was. So seeing those different groups interact, in a conservation and science oriented setting and get excited about it, that's exciting for me.
He said that, they were asking you guys questions, you guys were asking them questions. And, I know you're doing this Alveus Adventures kind of project right now, but how do you kind of look at, working and highlighting researchers and experts in this next phase of Alveus? Like, Yeah, how do you kind of view that within that roadmap?
Yeah, Alveus Adventures is a really important series for me. I've been saying a lot and talking about it that it really feels like we're spreading the love. Is Alveus has such an incredible platform and we get to reach so many people, but that doesn't mean that the conservation work that we're doing is any less important than people that don't necessarily have a platform to reach that many people. And so it's important to me to go around and help tell those stories because it's all such important work. And it's a lot of work that we're not able to do here. We're not doing freshwater fish conservation. We're not doing whale conservation here, but we can spread that message. And so I really like feeling like a bridge to a younger audience as a science communicator too, as a wildlife presenter, is how can I take this information that may be difficult to understand or feel inaccessible for them to understand, my viewers, and make it into something that's fun and digestible, but still get the important parts across to recruit young people into what we're doing and into conservation work.
Off of that too, I think I mentioned, spoke to a lot of fans of yours, many of whom college age, whether recent graduates, sophomores or so. I mentioned like one told me she started studying animal science 2 years ago because of you. Another was pre-med, and she said she likes learning about animals because animals teach me about humans, which I thought was a nice line. And multiple people talked about you helping them get over their fear of insects as well. Is that something you get a lot?
I am the insect PR team.
Yeah.
The official insect
For
PR
Big
team.
Insect,
Yes.
they're cashing you.
I am Big Insect.
But yeah, I kept hearing too, you brought up show and tell, and this is something that clearly people who are like watching very constantly are like very tuned into. So, talk to me about like really conceiving programs like that, how much of it is, you thinking ahead of time, this is what I think the community will like, and acting on that intuition versus just like more of a work in progress and figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, so Show and Tell was born out of a collaboration with World Wildlife Fund. They have a Give an Hour campaign that they run every year where they try to, maybe don't quote me on this, I think it's 100,000 hours that they try to collect of just like any nature-related activity. So trash cleanups and volunteering and replanting trees and things like that. So Give an Hour is a campaign that's run by World Wildlife Fund. I did a collaboration with them where I wanted to spread that messaging because I thought it was really cool. And so we made our own landing page on our site where we could have our own community hour bank, and then we send our community's hours in a chunk over to World Wildlife Fund to contribute to their bigger goal. So that's where that idea came out of, but it went so well and our viewers liked it so much, and it was also so cool for all of us to see, because most of the time we're not seeing what's on the other end of the computer, like we see chat messages and the username and like the emotes, but we don't actually see their lives and what they're doing. So it was really cool and it went so well that we kept it up. And so now it's a perpetual thing for us, whereas Give an Hour is like an annual campaign.
I know, again, mentioning a lot of your fans being, like college age, maybe recent graduates. If you think about like 5-10 years from now, those kids growing up into their 20s, what's like the dream email you could receive from one of them?
Oh, that's a great question. I've never thought about that. I don't know what I could what could be better than people saying they started studying biology or conservation because of me. There's obviously like people that are now in, if they're in research positions or they're doing field work or they're working for a conservation organization or making a difference there, that would be really, really cool to hear about. But right now, that's what means the most to me, is hearing that they're getting into it because of Alveus or because of me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just continuation of that. I want to see what they're doing with it. It's cool. It's crazy to think about. It's really hard to wrap my head around something like that.
Speaking of fans too, so I talked to one fan on Thursday, slightly older than the other demographic. It was Hank Green.
Oh,
and
my goat.
And I kind of asked him, what do you make of Maya's work, your perspective and whatnot. And he brought up this whole point around a lot of people can go viral. A lot of people can get attention. And then the question becomes, what do you do with that attention?
I think one of the hardest things as a creator is going from, okay, I have this, to like, okay, but what do I actually want to do with this? Because the dumb answer to that question is use it to get more attention. And then you use the new attention to get more attention, and you use the new attention to get more attention, and then eventually you become an attention black hole. I feel like to some extent the good ones are like, okay, so I have this attention. What do I want to do with it that would be good that would like tap into my skills, my abilities, my interests, my values, and also be good for the world. So that's something that I feel like sets Maya apart, is like, okay, so I have this, what do I do with it?
So I'm curious, it's like you have this attention, right? You're talking about funneling it back towards Alveus and everything. But what do you kind of see from the creator streamer world in terms of like how you want to use your platform, as well as, maybe some of the examples you see of like how you don't want to use your platform?
Yeah. I think the attention economy is a very interesting conversation that could go on for hours when it comes to creators, and when it comes to wildlife creators as well. It's very easy to fall into things that'll get you a lot of clicks that aren't necessarily responsible when you're dealing with animals. You see a lot of like monkeys in dresses, and you see a lot of harassing wildlife and crazy stuff like that on the internet. I think, luckily for me, it's been very easy to not fall into that because it's simply not what I want. It's just not what I'm intrinsically driven by. I'm intrinsically driven by protecting our natural world and protecting wild spaces, and all the animals that we have here at Alveus too. They're ambassadors, and we're so lucky that we get to live around them and know them so well and know them personally and see them every day. But every single one of them, me and my staff included, we would want nothing more than to see them in the wild. If these were animals that could live in the wild, we would want them in the wild. I would love to see our crows flying free, like I would love to see our monkeys in a rainforest in Brazil. So I've been to the Amazon and have seen these species in the wild, and it's just devastating to me that our animals don't have that chance. So I think every part of me, I'll like cry. I think every part of me is just driven to protect these animals in the wild. And so presenting them in any sort of way that wouldn't lend to that being a possibility for more of that species would just rip me to shreds. Yeah. So it's been really easy for me to not do that, which I'm very grateful for. And the attention and the growth and the community has come with it, luckily. Mm-hmm. People are really into it. They like seeing it like that. I'm stoked to be able to set such a good example for animal handling and wildlife presenting. And it means a lot to me to be in that position and to keep being responsible about it, and to teach people in the most ethical way possible.
Yeah. It's very much, treating Twitch as a tool, right?
Yes.
And, I think you spoke to, of course, a lot of these altruistic reasons and things you genuinely believe, of course. But I remember too, over Zoom, you had somewhat of a, joking here when I say selfish answers while working with animals of, I also like logging off and getting to go hang out with the animals because they don't care about YouTube views, They don't care about all that. And I might have brought this up then, but would love to as well. But just like, what does that definition of kind of touch grass mean to you?
Yeah, animals are so grounding because whether or not they're capable of it, I'm not sure, but when you have interactions with animals, they're not thinking of the future you, or what you said on Twitter yesterday, or or how many viewers you got the day before on your stream. That it's just not it's not a part of that interaction when you're with an animal. When you're with an animal, the interaction is very much like, how am I treating you right now? How are you treating me right now? What am I feeding you? Do you like it's just very grounding. It's so, you have to be in the present when you're with them. And that's like peak touch grass for me. I think that's just like, be as present as you can, go outside, like feel the sun, feel the ground, and animals just do that for me. Not just me, I think they do that for a lot of people, but that's part of why I love them so much selfishly. And it's been like that my whole life, so.
I mean, it's much different for us, we're normally writing, editing at computers, right? To be able to come out and actually step out and everything. My last kind of question for you, probably talked about this last month as well, but the kind of, obviously so interested and fascinated with your journey and whatnot, and that was the impetus for me reaching out, but also the moment we're in, the context of just like science, and just research and funding and all that. Mm-hmm. Curious with, in this moment, what's giving you hope?
For an organization like Alveus, I think we're really lucky to not rely on any sort of federal funding because it is really hard out there right now for a lot of people. National Park Service, universities, other nonprofit organizations that have federal grants that are not able to get them. because of our online community, we're not relying on that, which we are so lucky for. It's another part of the reason why Alveus Adventures and collaborations like that is really important to me, is how can we get alternate funding sources to organizations where we don't have to rely on stuff like that. So we're really lucky to be in that position. We're lucky to be able to spread the love to other organizations that are not in that position. So that's really important to me, and I know that organizations that we've collaborated with have been really grateful for that and are really excited by the concept. We recently went out to World Bird Sanctuary, and Connor was able to help them get live cams up, so they now have this Twitch channel, and so they're running a Twitch channel and teaching people in the way that we are, and they're really excited about that, and we're really excited about that, and so our community members are in their chat, like our viewers are typing, and it's so cool to see that crossover. So at the end of the day, like, all of these conservation organizations that are doing great work are very much in it together and in it for the same reasons, and we can all lift each other up in different ways. There's research that we have not done at Alveus, or we're not capable of doing, or we don't have the skill set for, that we rely on other people for, and then we're able to get this funding that maybe they don't have access to or don't know how to do. Yeah. So I'm excited to be working with other organizations just across all areas of our natural world. Ocean, land, Arctic, everything. Yeah.
Covered quite a lot of topics throughout the day today. Any last thoughts, comments, questions on your end?
I don't know. Thank you so much for coming out here. I really appreciate it. It's crazy how fast Alveus has grown, and every day, just like walking around here, seeing how set up our animals are and how well cared for they are is so special and so important to me. And it's cool to have sit-down interviews like this, because I don't oftentimes sit
it's
and
not
like,
your day to day.
Yeah, I don't like sit down and look back and be like, oh, what all have we done? And it's nice to do that and be like, holy shit, that's a lot of stuff. So it's nice. It's nice to be able to think about that. I appreciate it.
So as you saw throughout this conversation, I spoke not only with Maya, but also a dozen scientists, other creators, and even her viewers. That's because here at Powder Blue, we actually publish a print magazine once a quarter. And this quarter, I wrote a cover story, and it was about Maya. You may be wondering, why a print magazine? Well, for one, this thing's a beautiful collectible piece of physical media, fits right on your coffee table or bookshelf. Performative males, this thing is for you. But past that, our mission is to make the internet feel smaller, telling stories of online personalities and tastemakers like Maya, whose impact is felt beyond just her streams. These stories aren't intended to be second screened. They're well-researched, reported, and actually written by real people. You can purchase a magazine at the link in the description. This is the best way to support our channel. I'm an independent journalist myself, and all proceeds go towards building out our newsroom. This issue actually featured 96 pages of original stories, photography, and artwork from 13 unique contributors. I'm a little biased, but it's our most premium yet, and I couldn't be more proud of how it turned out. And if you can't purchase a magazine right now, no sweat. You can also subscribe to our channel and send this video to a friend. It goes a lot further than you think. All right, that's all from us for now. See y'all again soon.
I told you I had a surprise person I interviewed this week, so it was hype.
Yes,
Yeah.
You did a Zoom interview with him?
Yeah.
That is my goat. I only met him one time, and I just kept calling him LeBron, and I don't think he knew what I meant, so I'll have to explain that later.